Hello and welcome to another edition of Beyond the Hype for Black Enterprise. I'm Alfred Edmond Jr., Senior VP and Executive Editor at Large for Black Enterprise. And boy, do I have a treat for you, both in terms of the guest and in terms of the topic. We've seen women in sports just break barriers by leaps and bounds. First, it was she got next. Then it was she's got game. And now she's got time. And when I tell you who's on, well, you already know. Swin Cash. I got Swin Cash here on Beyond the Hype. I'm so excited because one, Swin is just a good friend. Her husband Steve Canal and I have known each other for a long time, and just wonderful person, wonderful family. But a basketball Hall of Famer who today is the VP of Basketball Operations for the NBA New Orleans Pelicans, and who's also starting a brand new initiative for women in sports. Welcome to the show, Swin Cash.
Thanks for having me. It's always good to be with you, Alfred.
Swin, first of all, it's great to see you. It's one of those just one of those experiences that you see people you haven't really seen in 2 or 3 years because of the pandemic. So I have a deep appreciation for seeing people now because it feels like it's been so long. But
Yes.
first of all, how are you doing? How's the family? What's going on the home front?
Yeah, so I'm doing well. I mean, the family's good. The boys are getting big, two boys now. Saints five, Sires two. Loving my job. Obviously disappointed. We didn't have an opportunity to make the playoffs this year, so just really diving back into work. But we have this summit that's coming up ahead of us, so just looking to that, looking to dive into things that I'm passionate about, diving into my job and family.
Well, I can't have this conversation as a sports fan without just really talking about this legendary career, this groundbreaking career. And you look like you could still. I'm pretty sure you probably still go out and play if you wanted to. But I mean, God, one of only 11 women to have an Olympic gold medal, an NCAA championship, actually two with UConn, a FIBA World Cup, and a WNBA championship. Um, Again, inducted into the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame in 2022. When you look at that, I mean, you're Swin, so you lived it. You're just being who you are and doing what you do. But when you got inducted last year into the Hall of Fame, I mean, what was that like? I mean, that is, oh my
Yeah,
God.
it was next level. It was I like to say kind of this emotional, spiritual journey that you go on, because it's so final. Like the finality of like that's it as far as your time between the lines. And
Mm.
it felt really, really good. It felt that I squeezed everything out of it that I could. I gave everything that I could while being a player. And when I got up there to do my Hall of Fame speech, I was very intentional about what I wanted to say and using that amazing platform to not only honor the past, women that came before me, speak about the present, thank the people I needed to thank, and really challenge all of us in the world of sports and outside of sports to do more and to be bold and to be different. So it was something that just felt great and a wonderful experience.
Talk to me about a little bit about your experience as a WNBA player from a different perspective. You were part of that so important generation that really. I mean, obviously, we've seen progress since then, even with this past season in both college women's basketball in college and in the pros. But you and I think of people like Lisa Leslie and Cheryl Swoops, and who had to really kind of make the case for this brand, this form of not just sports but entertainment, to really say no, we are ready for this international stage, for this world stage, for this television stage. And of course that was also part of the importance of your success in the Olympics and your success in other world competitions. But what does it feel like to know that not only did you give your all as a player between the lines, but what you ladies did to make the sport a legitimate competitive business and form of entertainment, when you weren't the first generation of women and girls who could play basketball well. I just remember this girl used to. I mean, I'm not a basketball player by any stretch of the imagination, but when you're a young man on the basketball court, you're not thinking that you can get school. And there was this sister that I went to high school with that just made us look bad. So, the talent was always there. The passion for the sport was always there, at least on the women I've known all my life. But you guys did just a very important thing in terms of bringing the sport and bringing women athletes in general to a whole new level, as you say, in a way that makes things possible for you know, you know, granddaughters and nieces and nephews and daughters to say, "Oh yeah, I can do that."
Yeah, one of the things that's really interesting about the journey, not only in women's basketball, but I think women's sports in general, is that the advocacy has always been attached to our game, right?
Mm.
Because when you are female, when you are a minority, you understand what it means to be suppressed in different ways, to not be acknowledged or supported at times. And so I think there are such a sacrifice even before me that women have made in order for me to even have that platform that I had in the WNBA. I think there are women now who are benefiting off of a lot of the sacrifice that the women before them had, where we weren't. Brands didn't want to do TV deals with us. Advertisers were trying to figure out if we put a WNBA player in front of it, is it too taboo? What is that going to signal? There were so many things that you had to fight against, which I felt like was a microcosm of our society in general. And through that, women just kept chipping away in the hopes that our daughters, our daughters' daughters will have a better opportunity. So when I see the Asia Wilsons of the world today, when I see the Brianna Stewarts, when I see these women who are making the choice to, you know what, I don't have to be with one big brand. If you're not aligned with what my values are, I can move to another shoe company. I can do a deal over here. Having that flexibility, having those options are vital for the growth of the game.
And you talk about it, you're starting between the lines because that's, as consumers of sport, we tend to focus on that. But when I think of the coaching, C. Vivian Stringer, who coached at my alma mater, Rutgers, you look at Dawn Staley, even Lisa Leslie as a coach. You look at refs. You look at the Violet Palmers of the world, and I'm old. I'm 20 years older than you are, so I remember growing up when we never thought we'd see like a black quarterback win the Super Bowl, and the idea of a black woman or a woman in general refereeing, coaching men, that would have been like, yeah, and one day we're going to go to Mars. Now, of course, we sent a probe to Mars, so I guess we're on our way there. But I think that younger generations, when I say younger, let's say under the age of 30, I don't know if they really understand that the tremendous evolutionary change that has taken place just over the last, say, 4 decades, particularly as relates to women in sport. I mean, what do you see when you look at it? You see what Dawn Staley and other women coaches are doing. When you see, female refs in the NBA, refereeing in the NBA, what does that say to you about where things are going? Even though sometimes we get frustrated and we think they're not going fast enough, but there's no denying that major progress has been made.
Absolutely, progress has been made. I think when you look at someone, you mentioned Coach C. Vivian Stringer. I mean, she's groundbreaking, and just for black women to see her in the coaching ranks and for her to be that figure where you can say, you know what, I can do that job. Her paving the way is the reason why Dawn is able to have a platform the way that she has it today. But Dawn is not only saying, you know what, thank you, coach, for allowing and paving the way to help me get here. Now it's my time to take that torch, and I got to move it forward for the next generation. I tell young people this all the time, especially the girls in the WNBA. I All I need you to do is to know your history. I'm not asking you to live out what I had to live out. You're in a new generation. So you have to fight and protect what you have right now because that's all you know. So the Asia Wilsons of the world, she doesn't understand not having any brand want to work with you. She's been on ruffled chips. She's had her Nike contracts. And I'm in the background like, go, girl, go. I don't want Asia to have to feel and get doors shut in her face that I had to get shut in my face. What I want her to do is to respect the opportunity she has and to keep fighting for the generation after her. So that for me, that intergenerational connectivity of sharing the information from woman generation to generation, woman to woman, it's supposed to impact them so that they can continue to make cast a wider net for all of us.
Mhm.
So that's how I view it. A lot of times I know, the generation, especially my generation, will say these young people don't get it. And I always say, well, I'm pretty sure when we were their age, some people said we didn't get it either. But
Right.
it's about the conversations for me. It's about respecting the past, honoring the presence, and pushing forward in the future.
Now, let's talk about what we at Black Enterprise and almost every industry call the final frontier. Where there's two final frontiers. Um, there's ownership. This is in every industry, and then there's executive leadership. And you are in executive leadership. You were that with the Liberty
Mhm.
earlier in your career. You are now VP of Basketball Operations and Team Development for the NBA New Orleans Pelicans. And again, I emphasize that even when people could get their minds wrapped around that women could excel in the sports industry, e- even if they could get that in their heads, that it was still this idea, but only working with women. Like, yes, you go as far as you can in the WNBA, but to see black women or women executives in general now moving into front office, obviously now we see some earlier, breakthroughs in the coaching ranks. Um, so you are kind of in that. Again, the final frontier is team ownership, but you're in that second tier final frontier, which is in the front office, helping to really run the business of sport, which is really what it's about. Talk to me about that journey. I mean, you've been an analyst, and you could always do that. Um, you could coach if that's the route you want to go, but you have seen to started carving out a path as an executive in the sport. Talk to me about what that means for you personally in terms of your own career choices, and then what you think that means for women in general as they move not only through the WNBA but the NBA and other sports organizations.
Yeah, I think one of the things for me that I was doing as I was playing was carving out my career in media, right?
Mhm.
That's what I love to do. I wanted to have a show like Oprah's, and I remember looking back at Tyra Banks of the world, and I love sitting down interviewing people. I loved getting storytelling and being able to tell people stories in a very authentic way. And so that's always been a part of who I am. But when I had an opportunity to come here to the Pelicans, it put me in a different space, and it challenged me in a different way. And what I mean by that, Alfred, is that it put me in a leadership position to have to use different muscles, right? Because in leadership as a player is different than um, leadership when you're in media or you're working with a crew to produce a story, or you're on air talking about talent, or as an entrepreneur. So it was one of those things where I wanted to challenge, and you can see on my shirt it says "Let equity rule" was big for me, because you want to have opportunities to be in a space that is equitable for you and for women of color. And as a Black woman, to show up as my authentic self every day was important for the atmosphere that you're trying to create in the NBA. And I think Adam Silver has talked about the progressiveness that he would like to have more women in coaching, more women in leadership. And that's important. It's not important because we're just women, give us opportunity. It's important because it's good business. Diversity of thought in the room, having diversity within your organization, that is supposed to cultivate the best business model for you. And I truly and honestly believe that. I don't think that you just give people an opportunity to give it to them, but I think there are more than enough qualified women that are out here. And that's why, for me, my purpose is what it is right now outside of my job, is to make sure we're identifying and highlighting and amplifying those women.
You talk about your shirt, the message, the let equity rule, and it calls to mind another reason that I think you're respected, not only as an athlete but as a leader, and that is the fact that you do come from a deep appreciation for, activism, civil rights, the experiences that you had and what you learned from previous, earlier generations of your family. Um, I noticed that I remember when you took a fine. You and other players in the WNBA took a fine because you wore a Black Lives Matter shirt during warm-ups, I believe. I mean, talk to that. See, I couch this because one of the main themes that is part of the Black enterprise ethos, if you will, came from our late founder Earl Graves. He would always tell us, you're not in the room because they ran out of smart, white people, and you know, part of your role is to sometimes you got to get in harm's way. You can't just say, "Oh, I made it and I'm good." Woo! Hope you get there because I'm here. But at the same time, you could have been like, "Listen, I'm doing what I'm doing. It's all good. I don't need to do all that." Talk to me. And I think you advanced. It wasn't just you. A lot of people like you in sport in general, and not just Black people during, especially during the pandemic, post George Floyd murder years. Um, did a lot to one say we do more than just dribble. By the way, that we are wholly
Too.
activated human beings and we have a right to say, but also that we can and will leverage our influence to move the ball forward if that's what it takes. And I, you guys, and again, it wasn't just Black athletes. Uh, we're such an inspiration, I think, to the nation in so many different ways, even the world, because you could have said, "Nah, what we do, we play basketball. That's what we do. Get back to us when all this is over." So talk to me about the part of you, who you are, and your experience and your upbringing that makes that part of what you do and how you lead.
Yeah, you know, it's easy for some people to get in positions and of power or get in a position to influence opportunities for other people, and you do nothing with it. One of the most y- not useful things that ever happens is a woman, a minority, someone of color, you get into that position and then you just forget about how you got there and creating opportunities to be more inclusive, more having more diversity because you're scared. You don't know how to function in that space because one, you come in and you're trying to bring your identity and your authentic self, but it's almost hard because you're like, well, they're already expecting me to do X, Y, and Z. And that's why I've always been a firm believer in having a solid foundation has to be at your core. If you're chasing a career, if you're chasing opportunities in life and it's not based in the foundation of who you are, it's going to be very difficult to sustain that. And so when I walk into spaces and jobs, opportunities, colleagues, work with different people, I just try to show up as myself and hopefully being myself enlightens them in a way where if they do have an issue, if they never really interacted with a woman of color, then their perspective is changed a little bit. And I will say to this point, the reason why the NBA, WNBA has been so effective with using their platform for good and for advocacy is because sports is one of those things that brings people together, right? And so if you can use that as a tool to get more exposure and to enlighten people in a different way, then you're doing something right. And so that's why I think sports is always has the ability to convene people in a way that can hopefully uh, produce progress for everyone.
I'll just say this, and I can speak for my children who are all, in their, but the youngest just turned 31, so they're in that generation. Um, they have a new idea of what it means to be a sports hero because of what happened. The things that were done during that period by athletes and others in sport, especially the NBA and WNBA. So once upon a time, your sports hero was just the person who scored the most points and won the most games, or won the most championships. They are operating, and I think I do as well, even though I'm from an earlier generation, that my definition of a sports hero was broadened because of the things that you and others did. In the way we think of Muhammad Ali or Kareem Abdul-Jabbar as a sports hero beyond what they were able to accomplish in the ring or between the
Amazing.
lines. And I just, I personally thank you and your colleagues in the sport for that. I also want to, this other important impact that I think women advancing and expanding their influence in sport, uh, that I don't think was appreciated, historically, is the whole idea of family and work life balance. I mean, you are a wife, you are a mother, yeah. It's not like male athletes weren't fathers and husbands, but again, no one was expecting, no one cared, because of the way gender roles are in our society. That aspect wasn't an issue, and the idea that the idea that somebody is playing while they're pregnant, or they're and people are like, what is she doing out there? She's like, yeah, I'm doing my job, and it's all good. Why do you care? But there's a whole new appreciation and a sensibility that I think starts in sports because of the platform. Like you said, it's a big platform, but
Mhm.
it also positively influences workplaces, I think, in every industry, when you're like, nah, you, family matters. And of course, the COVID pandemic made all of us realize what really mattered. But I think that was a kind of a message and an ethos that women in all workplaces and all businesses bring, and that you guys bring to sport. Talk to me about what it was like to pursue a professional basketball career. Let me even add another layer. Prior to the WNBA, the only way to pursue a professional basketball career is really spend pretty much half of your life overseas, and
Yeah.
that has major implications for if I get married, do I get married, when I get married, when do I start a family, or do I have to wait until I'm really done with this sport because I might be in Greece next year, or I might be in France, or might be. And prior to the WNBA, that was the options, that you
Mhm.
either stop playing, um, or you made other decisions that impacted your life so you could continue to play the game that you love. So talk to me about that element, both as an executive who now you're doing team development. You understand that the human being of the people that you're trying to get to perform, between the lines, but also your own perspective as a person who played the game, played it well, gave it her all, but is a human being and now is a wife and a mother.
Yeah, I mean that's a you hit on a lot of different things there. The one thing I could say is that you're absolutely right. Women had to make a choice for so long, and actually still do, if you want to be able to have income that can provide for you and for your family. And so there are a lot of women in the WNBA who still play overseas, but there are women who also, I remember, and you'll love this story, is Demaya, who I played with in China. Well, I played against in China. She was in China with her daughter at the time. Her daughter was going to school in China, in Beijing, and she was in this international school. Well, fast forward to today, her daughter just committed to go to Rutgers and play at Rutgers. And so it's the thing I love about that journey is I remember being there and playing against Demaya, and then afterwards us sitting down, breaking bread, having conversations, her daughter being there. And so there's a lot of kids that have had to come up with moms who are in the WNBA who may have taken a season off to have them and then go overseas. There's some women who have made the choice because the WNBA wasn't paying enough to have their child in the summer and set it up so that they can be able to be back for their season overseas. So the thing about this is that have we made progress? Yes. Are we there completely yet? No, because women are still having to make decisions about family and also in a playing career. But in saying that, one of the things I said in my Hall of Fame speech was, for every woman, my body is my body. And our society needs to recognize that women's bodies, you don't have autonomy over our bodies and the decisions that we make for ourselves and to choose a family, to choose a career. And so these are some of the topics and reasons why I wanted to lean in even more to She's Got Time. And I know we'll talk about that, is because women need to understand you can plan out life. You can figure out the timing. If you want to wait and have kids, if you're a woman that says, you know what, I want to get to having kids maybe in my mid 30s after I get married, or I don't want to get married. I may want to just be a single mom and I want to freeze my eggs. Like there's all these conversations that women have to feel like they have to have behind closed doors. Well, you don't have to.
Mhm.
Not here, not today. And that's the message that I want to continue to push forward is that we have to have the ability to have these conversations, to be a support for one another, and especially for me, women who are working in sports, because it is a grind. It is a grind to play the
Mhm.
game, to work in the game. There's long days, long nights, a lot of travel at times. So all those things impact your decisions about what it is that you want to do with your life and career.
When I was raising my children, when they were around the age, beginning around the age of your oldest son, and you got two boys. I was a girl dad until my son came along, so I got girls. Um, and one of the things that I emphasized in their upbringing was that they needed to pay attention to sports, and not from the standpoint that I thought that any of them were going to be athletes. They had different stints. My son played a little football, but for the most part, they never played. My thing was that the one way you can learn business, the one thing where you can learn salary negotiations, the one thing you can learn ownership is the sports pages is really the best business section in any media outlet because so much of the information is public. Who got paid what? Who negotiated the contract? How much is that team worth? And it was important for me for my daughters to understand sport, not because I thought they were ever going to play, but I always thought that one of the advantages that boys had over girls in terms of upbringing was that there was kind of a natural inclination to understand business because you're paying attention to sports. You got to understand business. And I was like, no. And of course, now my oldest daughter is a monster. They're all entrepreneurial. But my point was leadership, the value of learning leadership, whether you play the game or not. And if you don't play the game, you should still pay attention to that. I just think that's very, very, very powerful. Your sons are young. What is it that you hope they get out of having a mom who represents so much progress and has broken so many barriers in terms of how they even look at the women who will be their peers um, coming up?
For me, the biggest thing is I want when people talk to my kids about, your mom's a beast, your mom was a beast, or your mom did this. Um, I don't want it always to lead with basketball. Like I want them to say
Mm.
your mom was purposeful. Your mom, like she helped change this. Your mom was such an advocate. Or your mom, like I had a conversation with her and she helped me with X, Y, and Z. I think the human element of it is the biggest thing for my kids because there's that one gospel song where they talk about well done, when you get there and you talk to God and he says well done. I hope when I get to those pearly gates that um, the job is well done and it wasn't between the lines that was well done. And so I think living my life and being authentic to that and to be wanting to change this country, to change this world so that my boys can see it in a different lens than I see it today, is the driving force. I mean, the moment that I knew I was having a child and I gave birth to my oldest son, my perspective just changed so much. It was like instant. It was instant. It was this mama bear kind of, society, watch out, here I come, whatever. Is like you can fix it, you can do it, like. And it was nothing to do with myself. It's parents say it all the time, I don't shop for myself, I don't do this, I got to remember to go do my hair or do that, because you just pour into your kids. I want to pour into my kids so that they are great men. I tell people this all the time, I want my boys to be great men. So any of y'all out there, your daughters, and they thinking about having somebody, that they are raised to be men of purpose, men of faith, and that they are allies to different women. I think that is important for me. And so I didn't have a daughter. We aren't having any more kids. So, for me, that's important to raise men who understand what it looks like to have a mom that fights the way that she fights and that loves the way that she loves hard, that they'll understand what they're supposed to feel with love, but also how to give.
That is so powerful. This next question I want to use as a segue, if you will, into why the time for She's Got Time has
Mhm.
come. And so I want to start out with this question about pay equity, gender equity in terms of compensation in sport, and whether that's soccer, whether that's tennis, whether that's whatever the sport. And obviously, it's a conversation that's had in basketball, and then kind of segue into why now's the time for She's Got Time and what that is and what you're looking to do. Just from what you shared with me and from what Steve shared with me, it seems extremely exciting. But talk to me about that.
Yeah, so we talked earlier about just as I was getting ready for the Hall of Fame and just kind of going on this spiritual journey of, what's next, God? What does it look like? And I wanted to be more intentional. Um, the idea just really came to my mind. I wanted to go out. I talked to Steve. I said, we need to talk to some people. I know I have limited time with my job, but I want to be very intentional about where I put my time, where I put my efforts as I move past kind of going into the Hall of Fame. And in 2018, I had a podcast that was called She's Got Time. And I love this podcast so much because I just wanted to interview different women who weren't just in sports, but women who were housewives, women who were in social media, women who love sports, but hey, I'm an attorney. And so getting those perspectives, I thought about it and I said, you know what? Let's do some focus groups. We started talking to different women. And one of the things that was very consistent is that women of color kept saying there's a lot of organizations that are out there, but I feel like I'm attached to the culture. I love sneaker culture. I love this. I love museums, but I feel like when I go into those spaces, I'm either not seen or I don't feel like I'm connecting with them. And for me, that was really sad because I understood, like playing on a team, what it meant to have that support. And so I went to Steve. I said, here's what's in my mind. I need you to pull it out. As you know, my husband is a serial entrepreneur and he gets it, brand marketing, all those different things. And we just went to work. And I said, I know I'm not going to have time. We need to hire people. This is what I need to have happen. And he was like, well, you never asked me for anything. So you must really care about this. So in general, the reason why we called it She's Got Time is because people like to put women into a box a lot of times. You don't have time for family. You don't have time for a career. You don't have time for this. No, she's got time. She can make time. We figure it out. That's what we do. And She's Got Time is based around all women and allies who work in sports. You can play sports, media. You can be at a brand that actually has a partnership with sports. You can be at a league level, at a team level. I wanted to bring this cross pollination of women to create this ecosystem of membership where women are learning different resources from one another, where we're having virtual events. If you're a member of She's Got Time, you get an opportunity to come down to the summit. If you're a member of She's Got Time, there's opportunity for certain executives that have donated certain hours where you can say, you know what? I have an opportunity to try to get in and get 20 minutes with Alfred to talk about Black enterprise. And wow, he is pouring back into women who want to understand the business side, who also may have a skill set that they're in sports and maybe I want to get to a different position that's in the media.
Mhm.
So that's how we look at it. um, we're coming out big and bold with our summit, but I do believe that when God says move, you move, and so we're listening, we're faithful, and I have a phenomenal team. I'm going to take a step back. I'm here talking to you, but I want to give so much credit to them because they have been working since November when we said this is happening. They have been going and not having a full year to really plan out and just hit the ground running. I'm just so happy. It's going to be June 28th through the 30th here in New Orleans. I know a lot of people will be down here coming in for Essence Festival and enjoying yourself. So the city of New Orleans, as people like to say, wants to welcome you. But if you're going to be in town, please go to she'sgottime.com, grab your tickets, and come to the summit. We are rostered. Listen, when I tell you, Alfred, I put up a bat signal and said, ladies, this is what I'm looking to do. And every time I talk about this, I don't want to get emotional. When I tell you the outpour of women from different sports, leagues, leadership that said, what do you need? I got you. When do I need to be there? Hey, I have this other meeting. I'm going to have so and so move it. I'm there. I only can be there a day. That type of support showing up, I didn't expect it. And so it just kept happening. And we got to a point where it's like 30 people, and it's just like, all right, we got breakout rooms, we have this, we have the main stage, and it just kept going. And I'm just like, God, man, you are real. You're real.
See, but that's what God be doing.
Hmm.
That's what God be doing. That's
That's
all I got to say. That's it. Like what you say you asked for, get ready.
yeah.
It's gonna be way more than that. But I'm so excited. So you given the date and the website and the location. I want to make sure we repeat that before we end our
Mhm.
in our interview. But the summit is kind of a beginning, a coming out event, I think. But I know that this is more than just a one time. This is a broader initiative. What do you hope to see year round from She's Got Time, and what is the kind of impacts you're hoping to make over time?
Yes. So I would say for people who are out there, women who say, you know what, I can't get to New Orleans in June for the summit, go online, get your membership, join the community. We are building a tribe where we are leaning into us having a wider net. When I say cast a wider net, that means you're welcome. You're welcomed here. Everybody, the love is here. We're going to have virtual events where you're able to attend. We're going to have consistent newsletters that are coming out, our digital platform. Follow us on all social media platforms right now at She's Got Time. You'll see the content that we're pushing out and continue to just stay connected. When you're trying to build a community, you have to, it's each person talking to your surroundings and saying, let's go. So I tell people, grab your girls, come on down here to New Orleans, enjoy the summit, have a good time, enjoy the city, but most of all, become a member with us. Because I think that the more women we have saying, I want to show up, I want to be a part of this community, it's going to impact other people. And we're going to do some great things. Big shout out again to my team. Remember, it is June 28th through the 30th. But I'm just happy. I'm really happy that we'll continue to we have so many ideas about the scholarships and things that are in place that we're going to do for college students. We'll be on some college campuses. You can go to she'sgottime.com and learn just about, people are asking, well, who's the summit for? And I'm like, do you work in sports? Are you connected to sports? Do you cover sports? Uh, Come on down, because we have women that are across different sports that are speakers. We have allies that support. We have some of the shoe company brands. We have some leagues, some teams, media outlets. We have brands that are coming down, and our brand announcement is going to be coming out soon. And big shout out to the brands who jumped on board and said, hey, we want to make sure we're supporting you in this initiative because it's meaningful.
That sounds like it's going to be big and then get bigger from there. Like a great start and a great
Yeah.
future. Listen, I want to shift gears a little bit again um, for those who aspire. Um, One of the challenges of sport, and I would say the challenges of industry in general, especially over the last, say, 30 years, as we are a much more of a tech-driven society and economy. But even before that, I always said, the best jobs are the jobs you don't see. Like
Mhm.
when people say, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And you think of, now kids think of, "I want to be a YouTube influencer." Some of them still want to be a rapper, or they say if they think sport, they think they want to play.
Mhm.
Um, and we've seen it in other industries outside of sport where we tend to only, especially when we're young, if we can't see it, we don't think about trying to do it. But many of the most important jobs and careers now are not things that are easy to describe or things you can see with your own eyes. They're not the kinds of roles that are displayed on television. They're behind the scenes. I say all that to say that when you talk about getting to the executive ranks of any industry, it's hard to just kind of see what that looks like until you get inside,
Mhm.
and start building a career toward it and meeting other people who do it or have done it. So it's in that context when I think of people in our audience who either aspire to the executive opportunities in sports or business opportunities in sports, or maybe they have children that they want to. Yeah, maybe young man, you're never actually going to make it past high school basketball. Your game is good for high school, but it's not going to make, or your game is good for college, but not D1, or
Mhm.
your game is good for D1. Our current president and CEO, the son of the founder, Earl Bush Graves, says there's always that day that an athlete reaches when they realize I'm never gonna go any further than this. Like I just that no matter what I thought I was gonna be when I was 8, now I'm 28, and this is how far it's gonna go. And it happens at different stages of a career. But I say all that to say that, but it's not true that you can't have a career in sport just because you realize that you can't have a career that you want it between the lines or in the arena. So in that context, what do you do? What does a VP of basketball operations and team development, what do you do? What is your day like? What does that mean to do that? What skills do you bring to the table? How would somebody prepare to do what you do? And I would imagine that this is not something you thought about doing when you were, you know, coming up the ranks playing ball, or maybe you did.
So this would be a great example, I think, for a lot of your listeners, right? Is that I played the game. I also covered the game. I
Mm,
also, while playing the game, I was on the executive committee for the union. Went through 2 CBA negotiations, so going through kind of with the union and labor law and all of that, getting exposure to that. I also finished and had a contract and consulted with the NBA in regards to social responsibility. So and I had that. And then went back to media, and then I came here to New Orleans. So everyone's path is different. The thing that you have to remember is getting access to see where opportunities are and what it looks like.
mm,
For me, there are people who are VPs in the NBA that started in the video room and they worked their way up from the video room to being in PD and then the front office as a director. They were in analytics and they went boom, boom, boom. Every team is different in the NBA. Every The different job descriptions are different. My day to day for what I do, there's no one day that's alike, right? So
mm.
one of the biggest things for my job is working back and forth with our business side. Anything that touches our players is touching our team, whether it's the marketing, the sales team, corporate partnerships, all those different things that need access into what it looks like with our side and our team. That's a place that I work. I also go out and I do some scouting, and so I'm out there right now. We're preparing for the draft and the combine and different things like that. So sometimes I feel like I'm playing catch up because some of our scouts and people are all year long they're watching some of these kids, but our scouting group does a great job of condensing it down, and then you're focused in on just a certain amount of players. But I love it. I love the fact that every day is different. It's a challenge, and are you up for it? What's next? How do you move these pieces on the board, right? It's a chessboard. How are you moving them? But I tell people that's also a reason why, even with She's Got Time, listening to what other people are doing, when you have people at the manager level, entry level, directors that are working in different places, you don't have to want to aspire to be as an executive. You may say, her life is too busy. I don't want that. And that's okay. It's okay to say, you know what? I love what I'm doing, and I really don't. There's no ladder that I'm trying to climb to get there. I'm okay right here until I pivot out into maybe a different industry. And too many times people tell people, like, when you're in a job, you better be ready to climb. It's not about climbing. It's about what is your vision and purpose for yourself.
Mm.
That's your goal set. It's not about climbing within the vertical you're in right now. You could be learning a skill set that I'm taking, and I'm going to another sector of the business. And so that's what I try to tell people all the time is get access, understand, you know, where you are, learn your skill set. If you're at a director level, manager level, be great there. And then you can pivot to something else. So that's the biggest thing that I see. My day to day is crazy. My travel is crazy at times. My husband and I make it work with our kids. But that type of life isn't for everybody, and nor should it be. Your purpose and your drive and your vision is for yourself.
I did a post on Instagram that speaks to that, because that's how I've approached my whole career, by the way, just what you described. Um, don't confuse your success with your purpose,
Mm.
because it's not even just that you may not want to climb the ladder. Sometimes by the time you get to the rung you think you're going to, that rung doesn't even exist anymore. Things change. And in my case, I was a print media journalist for most of my career. And then basically in the mid 2000s, that that top of that ladder got taken off because they got, and so it's either get off the ladder or move over to digital and have to learn climb a whole new ladder. Or you could decide I'm done with climbing ladders, like you said, it doesn't serve my purpose anymore. But if you get rigidly focused on I'm on this ladder and that's what I'm going, and that's how I'm going to get to that some imaginary point because there's always another rung on the ladder. You can be very frustrated and disappointed, but the bigger tragedy is being distracted from a higher purpose. Because I, like you, believe that we were put here by God for some purpose, and if you get too focused on I gotta get that next rung, you can actually be pulled away from your purpose, and then you'll be obviously very unhappy. We both know professionals who are not happy with what they're doing, no matter how big their title, no matter how much they're getting paid.
Mhm.
So I deeply appreciate you making that point. In the home stretch of our conversation, even though it just seems almost redundant with you, I mean, I gotta say this in terms of what I think about you, Swin. And we haven't had this is the longest conversation we ever had. But Steve used to tell me about you when we were friends. We got to be friends, and he would keep talking about you. And before I realized who his girlfriend was, like, wait, that's your girl, you know. And then when I first, got to spend time around you and got to meet you, your sense of, and this is me on the outside looking in, maybe not be your experience on the inside looking out, of someone who is just grounded and radiating positive energy and seems well. And I know you're a woman of faith. I know that's a foundational part of it. So this question is a question I always ask every guest on the show about the idea of wellness and self care. You already talked about it. You're a wife. You're a mother. You have a demanding career. You have a crazy travel schedule. You have a whole lot of people and a whole lot of stakeholders who you are serving. Um, and again, the epitome of that busy, in demand, I got to be everything to everybody kind of life. Yeah, even now when you came on for this early morning interview and you like, yeah, yeah, I'm good. I'm together. We're good. Let me get this. Yeah. What do you do to make sure that Swin is good? And I always tell people that your most important asset. If you break down, it all breaks down. So when I talk to people who are entrepreneurs, especially who think, no, I don't have time to get rest. I got to build this business. And I'm like, if you break down, it all breaks down. So talk to
Mhm.
me about how does Swin take care of Swin?
Yeah, I always have kind of those moments. I will say that, the biggest thing for me is understanding when to take rest. And sometimes, and I'm just being completely honest, sometimes you end up having like these days where your body just will tell you,
Mm,
beep, beep, you need to slow down.
right.
And because even I'm guilty of it. Like I'll keep going. I'm like, oh no, I'm good. Then I'm like, oh, okay, yeah. The thing is that I try to listen. So because I've had injuries while playing, because I've had certain things in my career, um, I most definitely try to make sure that I take some time for myself. Um, whether it's a spa day if we're on the road,
Mhm.
some quiet time, getting a deep sleep. Because we talked about it getting on here. I don't turn my phone off at times, and sometimes you just have to be like, I need to not only have sleep but have a deep sleep.
Right.
Yeah, so that's where I try to really focus on that piece of it.
You know, one of the things, the cool thing about this show is what you liked about your podcast. Black enterprises, entrepreneurship, investing, corporate stuff. But I was like, I want to do this so I can talk to anybody I want about anything because I just like talking to interesting people. So I get what you were enjoying about your She's
Mhm.
Got Time podcast, which is why I'm having a ball this morning with you. But one of the things that I gained an appreciation of, not only by talking to athletes like you, current and former athletes, as well as my chosen sport, I didn't really come to it until later in life, is natural bodybuilding.
Mhm.
And my coach and mentor is a former Mr. Universe, Yanni Schomburger, who I just love to death, love to life.
Mhm.
And when she started coaching me, I was that guy that worked out every day, 365, because I like lifting weights. I like going to the gym. And
Mhm.
when he started coaching me, and we finished the season of competition. This is like 2 years ago. He said, "You can't go to the gym for 6 weeks." I thought I was gonna cry, Swin. I was like, "No, I can't do that. I gotta go to the gym." And he said, "Rest and recovery." He
Mm,
said, "If you want now, at that time I was doing 50 plus, now I'm 60 plus." He's like, "If you're saying you want to excel in this sport over time and you want to be able to do it as long as you want to do it, and I'm doing it as an amateur, I'm not nowhere near WNBA, NBA level." He said, "But if you really want to excel and do this over time," he said, "There's a reason why, a certain age pro basketball players decide, no, I'm not going to play during the summer. I'm not going to play overseas. I'm not going to play. It's a decision of whether I'm going to go up play on the Olympic team. Because if you want to extend your career, you got to have rest and recovery. Your body has to." And since then, I mean, applied it to my work life. I applied that rest and recovery is a thing. It's not being lazy. It's not wasting time. It's a key part of your long-term ability to perform over time. So
mhm.
so you just reinforced that again. I mean, sure,
Rest and recovery, yes.
yeah, your body, like I say, your body, it's like your phone. You could say, "I'm not going to charge the phone," but when that bad boy goes out on you, it's like, "You're going to charge me now."
Where's the charger?
Right? Exactly. Listen, Swin, you've been just so generous with your time and with your energy. You're always generous with your energy. You're always such a positive presence. I got to
Yeah.
say that I deeply appreciate that about you. Thank you again for joining me. Before I let you go, just tell our audience again, one, where they can learn everything about She's Got Time, and two, where they can follow you on social or whatever if they want to keep up with what you're doing.
Yes. So the summit, She's Got Time, is happening June 28th through the 30th in New Orleans. You can go to she'sgottime.com, learn more information. You can follow She's Got Time on all social media platforms. And you also can follow me if you feel up to it at Swin Cash on all media, on all social media platforms. So we appreciate you taking the time. Um, yeah, I appreciate you. Much love.
Much love to you, Swin, and to Steve and the entire family, your boys. Thank you so much for being my guest on Beyond the Hype. Yep, we did it again. Another great edition of Beyond the Hype. I'm your host, Alfred Edmund Jr., and we will see you next time. Take care.